Are there any modern scientific discoveries or theories that indirectly support or challenge the existence
Mm,
of Atlantis? To be the devil's advocate here, that you
sure.
found.
I'm thinking off the top of my head. I mean, not really, especially not after Gobekli Tepe. I think before Gobekli Tepe, you could make a claim, maybe, and especially not after the discovery in what is it in South Pacific, in I believe Indonesia, Borneo, of Gunung Padang, which they
Oh
think is
my god.
20,000 years old, and it's
Yeah,
like,
that thing is insane. I saw it in ancient Apocalypse.
what's that all about?
Yeah, that's like another
You
whole other
know, I
world.
think
Like,
I think maybe 20 years ago it was. That's why I have such tremendous respect for people like Hancock, who in 1995 was talking about this stuff before Gobekli Tepe and Gunung Padang were even discovered. And so I think it's really difficult today, specifically with Gobekli Tepe. I think that's like, if you still think that there were only hunter gatherers on Earth,
it's not. Come
or
on.
that Gobekli Tepe, I heard somebody say in an article, oh, they were just brewing beer there and they just hung out there. We found evidence that they actually were, it was just a brewery where hunter gatherers came to drink. I'm like,
So that how did
we'll
they
go to
lift?
any extent,
How
we'll
did
go
they
to any
lift
extent. I don't know.
20-ton pieces of what is it, Grant? Whatever the
Well,
damn thing
they
is.
just got drunk, Alex. They got a
That's
couple Bud
true.
Lights
They got a
and
couple Bud
and they
Lights.
built a ramp, just like in Giza, they built a ramp, Alex, that doesn't exist. A
Right.
ramp that's bigger than the pyramid itself that just disappeared into thin air.
And then also, by the
Um,
way, also chiseled in really accurate astronomical
yeah,
ideas as
yeah, more
well.
accurate than the Greenwich we use today. We were supposed to actually, it was a conference, believe it or not, around the turn of the century where they were deciding what's going to be the international time count
Yeah.
meridian, and they were going to pick Giza because they said this is more true than Greenwich. And at the last moment, they said Greenwich. We're going to use the Greenwich Tower or whatever. And again, yeah, they just
Well, so
moved
then
it
also,
on.
right, and then also don't forget the pyramid. The dimensions of the pyramid, if you multiply it by a certain, like the width of the pyramid
Mhm.
is the height of the earth in the
Well,
dimensions or something like that.
the actual scale of the pyramid is an integer. Christopher Dunn discovered this. It's a literal scale model of the weight of the Earth. So,
And the diameter and the
which,
diameters
yeah,
and the
right, and it divides the hemispheres, which you need in a tomb, Alex. That's
right.
so important.
Well, they've never found any. There's just never found a body in there, man. They've never found a
No,
body or any.
no,
There's no hieroglyphic. There's no
no.
hieroglyphs inside of the pyramids.
And it leads me, I guess, to kind of conclude this part of the discussion. It's why I spent so much time on like the psychology of the academic world, and not just academia, but any of these journalists from Slate or National Geographic. And there are some good ones, but I point out some cases where it's like all they have is ad hominem attacks and basically counting on your own ignorance of this material,
Mm-hmm.
because I really wanted to give this book to the world to show people, like, look, if you were ever on the fence, like, there are a couple just shut down type arguments you can make, where if somebody said, oh, you believe in Atlantis, and I mean, you could use what you said, like, well, you believe a man walked on water and raised himself from the dead. I'm not saying he did or didn't, but I mean, billions of people believe that. Are they all crazy? Um, we don't even need that kind of leap of faith to just think, well, if modern humans have existed for at least a quarter of a million years with the same or greater brain capacity as us, why did it take us 193,000 years to learn how to farm?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Or Edgar Casey and Frederick Oliver are telling a story that's been lost to us, and we've actually always been advanced or on varying levels of advancement, but that the current level of technology has existed dozens of times through dozens of cultures in dozens of destructions. and that we've always had electricity in different forms. We've always had internet in different forms because physics doesn't change as far as I know. And if the same physics can produce this today, then they could produce it in the past. You know, we
Yeah, you
still have
just
the
need to
same
keep.
materials. It's the same like sandbox to create. So if we had the same brain quarter of a million years ago, what
What's
happened?
what's different between that and now?
Yeah, nothing.
Well, that's the question. Like, what?
Nothing.
Why didn't during the Roman times when there was wealth and power and everything, we didn't make the kind of advances that we did today?
Well, there's a few strange things like, like the Romans knew about steam power, but they only used it for toys, you know? And the ancient Greeks had on temples doors that opened not automatically. You still had to start the machine, but they had steam powered doors on a certain temple, I believe, in Delphi to make people think the gods were opening the doors. So, and then like Archimedes had inventions that like levering of types of types of levers that even to this day are incredibly advanced and cantilevers for that time. But I would argue, and I talk about this, I think, quite a bit in the book, that whatever did exist in terms of that record of that knowledge, whether it was deployed or kept for the priesthood or whatever, I do believe was taken to the Vatican or destroyed outright during the three destructions. One purposeful, the second one, the first, the fire that Julius Caesar started to save Cleopatra's ass from her crazy brother. And then the third, pillaged by, the first Muslims to take over Alexandria. So I think there probably were records of high technology and its use. They're just gone, they're
or
just gone.
exist or exist in the
Or
vault of the Vatican.
or they're in the basement. Yeah, of course they took something. Hey, if they could take an obelisk, from Heliopolis and bring it back to Italy, I'm sure they could take a few boxes of books on like alchemy. I'm sure they have a couple of those down there in the basement, but they won't let me and you down there, so we'll never know.
To watch the full video, click on the link below, and don't forget to subscribe.